Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Swish for Real. I got my boy Boogie Bob in the building. Bob, what's good?
Yo, yo, yo. Thanks for having me, Big Mike.
As always, he's the co-host. And I know people. Y'all ain't seen him in a minute. He's been kind of a hiatus doing this thing on the 5 session, man. Give it up for your boy, Big Ken. What's good, man?
What's up? What's up, y'all?
Man, how you
We
been,
got
brother?
the OG back.
Yeah,
Facts.
man. I missed this. I missed the sports talk, man. I'm ready. I was doing my
Man, you
homework. As soon as I got the rundown, I started doing my homework immediately.
and I
Well,
apologize for getting it to you late, but I'm glad you
Nah,
got it, man.
yeah, nah. It took it
yeah.
took
So
me
you
took
got
me
it
a
for
minute.
this week. You'll see what we'll be talking about over the next 4 weeks too.
Okay.
Absolutely, man. Man, last year the season was a whirlwind, man. Everybody had their predictions of who was going to be the MVP, and a lot of people were surprised who was the MVP. But this year, it's going to be a different story, man. I think the leader right now is still Joker as far as the 2025 MVP race. We're going to start with you, Ken. What are your takes on who you think, if you had to choose at least the top three? I know you probably got a big list of who you really think, but kind of tell the people what your thoughts on is the 2025 MVP race and who you predict to win it.
Now, actually, I have exactly three people listed. And these three people are probably no surprise. Maybe the last one, but I'm definitely got Joker on the list because I mean, hey, I mean, he's gonna be consistent. If nobody else, the way he plays, it's not gonna change. You know what he does, and you know that this gonna be consistent. And the second person on the list is Luca. I think Dallas took a big jump this year. I think they were a little bit ahead of what, maybe people had predicted.
Hmm.
And I think a little bit ahead of what probably even they saw uh, as far as the progression and their success in the postseason. So I still got Luke on my list. And my third person is Embiid. I think
MB.
I think him going this summer with the Olympic team and him being able to play so well over there and him having those experiences and being around those other guys, I think that's going to ignite a little bit more competitive spirit. And hopefully, if he can stay healthy, then I think that what I'm saying, he's going to be a force to be reckoned with.
I'm surprised you didn't put Shea Gillius on your list, man, because he's been like up there in the top five as far as MVP considerations.
Yeah, I mean, if I had made my list with five, then yeah, he would definitely be on that list. But I think that Embiid stays healthy this year, and I think he rounds out that top three.
So bringing it back to Luca, with last year's performance, and I hate that they didn't succeed in when they wanted to see his performance last year. Does it give him the benefit of the doubt to maybe get the 2025 MVP?
I think he's gonna be, in the front runners from the very beginning. And again, he's another one of those players where you know what you're gonna get from Luca. And hopefully, he took this time over the summer to improve on his game, to add some different things. And it's gonna be some changes to me. Now I know we're gonna talk about this eventually, but with the Mavericks. But it, to me, his numbers might be a little different. I don't see him going down too much, but I see his scoring going down just a tad bit. But I see his other numbers kind of tweaking to where he becomes more of I guess more of a LeBron type numbers on a consistent basis with that team. Because to me, Kyrie's gonna need some more touches. If that team is gonna be successful, you got to get Kyrie more touches. That's
Gotcha.
just yeah. That's
So,
just the
and
way I
one
see that.
one last question: what are the parameters that you use to consider a person to be NBA MVP?
Well, I mean, first of all, you gotta look at team success. Team
Hmm.
success is part of that because you can't have a guy that's playing lights out basketball and his team is terrible. So team has to be successful. So that's a part of it. Also, um, how does he affect the team? Does the team play well when he's not there? And or does the team have a huge drop off? Does the chemistry off? Like, how does he fit in with the chemistry of the team?
Mm,
how big of a piece is he, in that success of the team? Because some of these guys are really good, but the team doesn't have a drop off when when they're not there. At the end of the day, it's not even about the wins and losses. It's about when you look at the game, can you see a distinct difference on that floor when this
mm-hmm.
person's missing, and how hard else has to play in order to fill that gap, or is it just this person's missing and you just keep plugging right along?
And I know I said I had one last question, but I have one more last question. Jalen Brown, do you think he has an opportunity to even make the conversation? He's already kind of in the conversation, even though he won the Finals MVP. Can he be an MVP candidate this year? Because I really think he can. He has the tools to do it.
He has the tools to do it, but again, I mean, you can't be the MVP to me if people don't even know if you're the guy on that team,
Mm,
right? Whose team is that? Is that Jalen Brown's team or is that Jason Tatum's team? Right? Like, I mean, that's still a discussion. Even though, he won the Finals MVP, there was a huge
and
discussion.
also the conference MVP.
Well, there's a huge discussion that Jason Tatum should have won that based on a lot of people's, what I'm saying, opinion. So, I mean, it was it's been a huge thing with those two. But if you look at their games, they have very similar games.
Hmm.
But I think at certain points, if you look at how defenses play them, I think now that I could be wrong, but I think Jalen Brown benefits from having Jason Tatum on the team because a lot of attention is paid to Jason Tatum,
Mm.
right? So when you got that much attention on one guy, then somebody else is going to be able to exploit that. And when you got two guys that are able to play at such a high level, then that gives the ability for the other guy to kind of get off a little bit more.
Gotcha. Bob, same question, MVP race, man. I know you have a list as well, and I'd love to hear your comments on it. So, who do you got as far as your top? Well, you can give us your top when you give us the rest of it, but your MVP for 2025. What is it looking like on your end?
So I love having Ken back on the show because great minds think alike, and so I was paying attention to some of the stuff he. Thanks for leaving some meat on the bone there. I got to eat too. Uh, when we talked about the MVP race mid-season last year, the Mavericks hadn't traded for PJ Washington and all that, but Luka was setting all kinds of NBA records. Most the fastest to 10,000 and breaking a lot of LeBron records. A lot of 40-point triple doubles. And on that show last year, I said to win an MVP, you have to have a year before where you set it up, where you get noticed. Before Westbrook won it or KD won it or Harden won it, they had league leading statistics. So, outside of Dallas, the East Coast has a lot of flavor, uh, a lot of voting power. So it takes that record breaking season to kind of get noticed and in the conversation. He was in the conversation. Them going to the finals definitely gives him a boost up. Uh, is it never discount where the money's at, on the voting, follow the money. And right now, SGA is the lowest odds and Luca's number two.
Hmm.
Uh, Jokic and Embiid are 3-4 or 4-3, whichever way you want to look at it. So people forget even Maxey filled a big hole, but once Embiid got hurt, they went from the best record in the East down to what was it, fifth or sixth in the conference. So, like Ken was saying, it's like what happens when the superstar's not on the floor, and that's one of the things that I think the Mavericks addressed by bringing Spencer Dinwiddie back. They tried last year, but the non-Luka minutes, Kyrie could only shoulder some of the burden, and when he wasn't on the floor, their offensive efficiency went down. It just tanked. So I think last year, what statistic wise was an MVP year, but Oklahoma City's record came out of nowhere, and I said Oklahoma City, watch out for them and Chet Holmgren, and they finished first. I think that helped propel SGA, but he's got to do it a second year. So to me, it's a Jokic getting a fourth one. I was like, yeah, there's not too many. There were not a lot of players that's got three. There's very even fewer that's got four. So I think there's going to be you got recency bias and you got historical bias that's going to work against Jokic. Embiid is so my top three. I'm going to be a homer: Luka, SGA, and Embiid.
Luka, SGA, and Embiid.
Yeah.
I like Embiid's chances too. I think, in my opinion, it's going to be Luka, because Luka is going to be more sought out there as far as visually. People are going to watch a lot of his games, and it's going to be some things that he's going to do that as always, we're going to be amazed with his productivity.
Well, he got exposure by being in the finals that he didn't have going into last season. So that is going to carry a lot of weight, and that's going to get a lot of eyeballs. But his statistics, you go back and look how many records he broke last year, and everybody's like, why isn't he mentioned the MVP? So that statistical year set him up for this year. But you got to stay healthy, and you got to perform again, like Ken said. You know, it's an old saying: it's easy to rack up stats on a bad team. And so as the Mavericks get better, which we all think they will and hope they will, then your stats gonna are going to suffer. But Michael Jordan had a couple scoring championships before he won an MVP, and when he started spreading it around and letting Pippen have more of the ball, and so Luka, I think he dominated so much that everybody relied on him. This year, I don't think he can still dominate, but I don't think the Mavericks need him to dominate to win. And that's where you're on that line. So after Williams, Holmgren, and SGA, the rest of Oklahoma City's got good players, but most of the national media couldn't tell you any more than those three players.
But then they picked up Hartenstein.
They picked up Hartenstein, so he because he played in the East, he might get some. But I mean, if you were to ask outside of Dallas to go California or Florida and say, how many Maverick players could you name? It's more than three. If you ask them to name how many Oklahoma City Thunder players, they might name three, maybe four. Probably some of them mentioned Josh Giddey, but they traded him away.
Yeah.
But I think last year's performance set Luka up for this year. So SGA has to take a step up, and then it's going to come down to like tens. How good is the team, and how bad are they when the player's not on the court?
So with the betting odds, as far as the MVP vote, the betting odds are saying Joker number 1, Luka number 2, Joel Embiid number 3, Shea Gillis Alexander number 4, and Giannis is number 5. What are your thoughts on Giannis being number 5? I mean, I would think he could be past Shea Gillis, but Shea Gillis did his thing. It's just hard to move those two. So I guess the betting odds are correct, but your thoughts on Giannis being number 5?
I think the Bucks miss Drew Holiday. You saw how much he helped us.
Sorely miss Drew Holiday.
And Damon Lillard, love him, great player, but I don't think he added what they thought. And Chris Middleton is just not the same since the championship. So I don't think it's that Giannis has gone down as far as an athlete or his performance. He hasn't. The last couple of years, he hasn't really got better. He goes to the hole, his dunker spot, his outside shot, but he really hadn't added any. Like Ken was saying, Luka's added to his game every year. I think people Greek Freak's getting close to 30 now. So and he's got his ring, and he's already got an MVP. I meant to look this up. How many people? What's the oldest age somebody got an MVP? But I didn't I didn't get to it. But most of your MVP races outside of Jordan or Magic Johnson or maybe Kareem, most of them they're before they turn 30.
So without any of those guys on that list, if there was a dark horse MVP candidate that would possibly win it, who would you think that would be?
Mhm.
Well, you know how much I like Jalen Brown.
Yeah.
Uh, I, I liked what Ken said. That's a good perspective. Uh, there's two guards that people forgot about. De'Aaron Fox and Ja Morant.
John Morant was on that list too, as far as the betting odds.
Yeah. I mean, if he gets his head right,
Oh yeah, he just get it right. But sticking to the Eastern Conference, man, I know the Bucks have a long way to go, and I want to know. And we're going to go back to you, Kim. Who do you think is going to win the Eastern Conference? I already know the odds already say Boston, and I'm pretty sure that's probably who you have too.
Mhm.
But let's just kind of dig deep into that Eastern Conference and kind of give me your perspective on teams that may not make the conference finals. So, what are your predictions on the Eastern Conference?
Well, of course, I got Boston. They're the favorite. I mean, to me, one of the big things that helped them win this past year is their continuity with their roster.
Mm,
Who they brought back and who they added. They have a lot of pieces that offensively spread the floor and can fill in different spaces. They have willing passers. They have willing, people that are willing to share the ball. And defensively, they're starting five. All five guys defend. So that makes a big difference. So it's going to be hard for anybody if Boston is healthy to actually beat them in a 7-game series, first and foremost. And I have my dark horse is the Knicks. I like the moves that they made with their roster. A lot of people are probably going to sleep on the fact that they have all those Villanova players back together again.
mm,
But again, people have to understand when you have guys that have chemistry and not only chemistry on the floor, but chemistry off the floor, it does something different with the culture of the team and the play style on the floor. When you have guys that are willing to make those sacrifices. So I think the Knicks are going to be, one of the teams that are going to be at least in the top 2 or 3, teams at the end of the day. I'm looking for them to make a deep run in the playoffs, and like I said, they're my dark horse to at least make the conference finals.
So let me ask you this question on the Knicks. Now that was one of my. I'm glad you just mentioned them. They don't have a true center at that position because they just lost Hartenstein, and then you got Julius Randle, and he's gives you something sometimes. But I see what the Villanova Knicks that's they calling them now. I see that the continuity will be there with those three kids working back on the same squad like they did in college. But that's only those three, and out of those three, there's probably only one good defender. You know what I mean? And the rest of them just hoop. You know what I mean? They just hoop and get buckets. But you're gonna need more than that, and then you can't really put your shoe and your hat on with the um, with the center position because there's nothing there. What do you think? I mean, I don't think they're gonna go far if they don't find something to replace Hardenstein.
I don't think in today's game with what they have offensively, looking at their roster, I think Mitchell Robinson will be fine. And I think if they find somebody else that's serviceable, and you don't have to have a bunch of bigs now. A
Hmm.
lot of these guys, if you got some 6'8", 6'9" guys that are athletic that can move on that backside. I mean, hey, look at what Golden State was able to do with Draymond. So if you have guys, what I'm saying, that can, fill in those spots, what I'm saying, like if Mitchell Robinson, goes to the bench or something like that. But I mean, you really don't have to have that. Just looking at their roster, man, they got what I mean, I'm just looking at of course, the Villanova guys. They got Who else do they have? They have
Julius
they still
Randle.
they have Julius Randle. They have Taj Gibson. Oh, a veteran. You know what I'm
It
saying?
wasn't what's his name? Precious Achua. Is he on that
Yeah,
squad?
Precious Achua, OG Ananobi, um, RJ Barrett. I mean, they got players. You know what I'm
I
saying?
thought they traded RJ to Toronto, no?
Yeah,
I think they did.
They used him to get OG.
Okay, so
Yeah, I
yeah,
don't see, man. I get you. I get you. I mean, with having Bronson on the squad is a plus, regardless. He's gonna make everybody better, and plus, you're gonna hoop hard. But I just don't see where that defense is gonna get them past. If they get past the second round, I mean, first round, that's cool. But the second round, I don't know if they have enough defense on that squad to get past the second round.
we'll see. We'll see. Because I mean, really, outside of that, I mean, who else has the type of defense the Bucks used to have that? But you know what I'm saying? Like at this point, I mean, the biggest thing with the Bucks, the problem with the Bucks is like you said, they lost Drew Holiday. They
Mhm.
bring in Dame, and Dame is not a defensive guy. No matter what anybody says, he's an offensive guy. He tries to play defense, but he's just not. It's just not something that he's great at. So what you look at with Drew is he does so much. Look at what he did for the Olympic team. If you go back and you look at some of those games, it's just the little things that he was doing in those games that make a big difference. And the defense that he plays on, from 1 through 3, he can defend generally a 1 through 3. So, I mean, you don't have that kind of versatility with a lot of these teams. And I mean, like I said, the Bucks might be the only other team. I mean, Philly, you want Philly to win. You want Philly to play well. You want Embiid to finally see some success, but I just don't know. I just don't know what Philly's gonna bring to the table, man.
Mm,
And it's not even about their roster. I think it's their identity, right?
mm.
Like Embiid is their best player, but the thing that is different now, and I look at this all the time versus when you look at maybe 90s basketball, is a lot of these teams don't have a leader. Like when you looked at the Knicks in the 90s, you knew Patrick Ewing was the guy.
Yeah.
You knew Chicago, you knew Mike was the guy. Every team had the guy, and that guy was a leader generally.
Mm,
A lot of these teams just got the best player, but the best player is not the leader.
right.
So it's a odd dynamic. And when you look at the teams that are successful, you look at the teams that win championships, generally they have at least one guy that is the leader, which is an oddity with Boston because they really don't have that.
I thought Jalen Brown was that because he really pushed.
He plays like a leader, but they don't have somebody that's on the court that just says, okay, at the end of the game, give me the ball. The ball's coming to
So,
me.
so now you miss one squad that everybody always sleeps on until they get to a point where they in the finals, like they did a couple years ago, and that's Miami. I mean, like the culture there is like, how you gonna sleep on them?
I mean, Miami's always gonna be there. Spolster's gonna always have his guys ready. Riley's gonna have his stamp on that still. Spolster's great. Spolster's always been a great coach. He does his due diligence, he does his work. But we know that that's Pat Riley's stamp. You know what I'm saying? That
Hmm.
culture of the Heat. They're always gonna be there, man. But again, with that roster that they have, you just don't kind of know what you're gonna get. You know what I'm saying, at the end of the day, because I mean, they have some great players, they have some great pieces, but is Jimmy gonna be able to do it?
And stay healthy. And
Yeah.
the last team in Florida is going to be a surprise to a lot of people, and that's Orlando, man. Orlando, man, I'm telling you, they them kids is looking really good,
They
and
got yeah, they
I'm
got they
pretty
got a
sure they're
nice
going to
young
make the
roster.
playoffs.
Yeah.
That's who's going to be competing against the Knicks as far as in the second round. I predict they're going to face off against the Knicks, and they're going to beat the Knicks in the second round.
We shall see.
So, Bob, on you, man. Give me your predictions for the Eastern Conference Finals, man. Who's going to win the East?
Well, I had two teams last year. I have to go back and look at my notes, but I had the Pacers and the Magic last year when people didn't think they would come around. But this is in order, so I mean, until someone knocks the crown off your head, you're still the champ. So I got Boston 1, Philly 2. They added PG-13.
Mm-hmm.
I got the Knicks. And don't forget about Rick Carlisle. I got the Pacers. Then I got the Magic. And don't sleep on the Cavs. If JJ, or if you're listening, I got your team. I got the Cavs listed. And then for the play-in, to be surprised of these two teams, they may make it higher. But I got the Bucks and the Heat.
Bucks and Heat as play-ins?
Ooh.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm gonna have to say that again. Wow.
Well, unless they switch Giannis, and he plays defense sometimes a center, because they don't have. Lopez brothers. I think they traded one, but I just another year older. Dame another year older. Giannis another year older. Middleton's still kind of hurt, but I think the Magic and the Cavs have passed the Bucks in the. I would have the Heat higher. Jimmy Butler is what 35, 36 now. And they've lost a lot of players. They kept Duncan Robinson. They still got Bam, but Mass Strus is gone, and
Tyler Hero's still there, isn't he?
Tyler, I think, left, and there's another guy that went to one of the California teams. So a lot of those free agents that came out of nowhere, undrafted players, you got to fill that pipeline again. So they need a point guard. They traded for Rozier, got rid of Lowry and traded for Rozier, but you get LaMelo Ball from Charlotte.
Charlotte, yeah.
Then now we're talking. I just don't. Jimmy 2-3 years ago carried that team. He took them to the finals twice, but there's a lot of miles on those legs.
So the bottom of the Eastern Conference, which was typically Charlotte, Detroit, and Washington, what do those teams need? And particularly Charlotte, because I always have high hopes from Charlotte's making it out of the cellar. What does Charlotte really need to get them to be playoff contention? I know they might not win the East this year, but if they had an opportunity to grab a player or two, what are those positions that you think they need to fill to make them even playoff possibilities better?
Well, they traded PJ. There's just a lot of instability in that whole organization, not just the players. There's been a coaching round tree, GM round, revolving door. And I think the culture, like Ken was alluding to with the Heat, that Charlotte is just missing a culture that. And I think Michael Jordan stepped away from ownership, if I remember.
Yeah, he gave he did. He gave majority stakes away.
Yeah. LaMelo has now been in the league, 3-4 years, maybe 5? Well, he came in after Lucas, so 3-4 years.
Mm-hmm.
So, been a little injury. They traded PJ, so the cupboard's a little empty.
Yeah, they haven't been good since Alonzo Mourning and Larry Johnson. It's
been a minute. Yeah.
And I just can't understand why they can't get it right, man. I'm not a Charlotte Hornets fan, but at the end of the day, I love the ball. He can hoop, and I like what he brings to the team. Any other dark horses you have as far as the Eastern Conference?
Not really. Detroit filled up their roster with some veteran, high-priced. They took on a lot of salary.
Detroit
Cade,
was a
Cade
sad story.
Cunningham is a good player. I don't think he's great. I saw him when he was still in high school. Like you could see the talent, but I wasn't overly impressed even when he was like the number one recruit in the country. And he played for Oklahoma State. He looked good. They called him, a miniature Luca.
Mm,
But they just they got one of the the Thompson brothers, the
hmm
couple years ago. They got Tim Hardaway Jr. and some other veterans. I think they'll creep up off the bottom, but I don't think they'll be enough to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
I would I the team Atlanta, they can get their stuff back together.
Oh, they just threw Atlanta in the trash. I mean, they don't care about Atlanta no more.
Yeah, Atlanta's done for.
Yeah.
Well,
Trade.
they got that pick, and then they traded the Dante Murray.
Yeah.
They got that center from France.
Yeah.
This is one of those Trey Young better get him to the playoffs, or the Lakers are going to come calling.
That's what I was just thinking about that because the Lakers been talking about Trey Young for a minute. If they get him, I mean, LeBron can kind of put it on cruise control because he ain't got to do much. You got to score now. The only thing he doesn't bring to the Lakers as far as Trey Young goes is defense. But hey,
Nah, LeBron will never be on a team and he's off the ball. He just won't. And I don't see that happening. I don't, because we talk about that, in different circles, and I don't see LeBron being on a team where he's off the ball. You just never have seen that LeBron before. And when he does play off the ball, it's a different ball game for him. You know what I'm saying? He's
mm,
not nearly as effective
Yeah, he has
because
to set up his own shot.
well, but if you notice, majority of LeBron's career, he plays downhill.
yep,
A
Yeah,
lot of his buckets and a lot of his offensive productivity is when him playing downhill,
yeah.
and him playing
Same
off
with
the ball.
Giannis.
Yeah,
Same with Giannis. North and south. No east
yeah.
and west, just north and south.
If he plays off the ball, that's gonna limit him a lot.
so you
So
don't think Trey Young would relinquish some of his? I don't know, man. I
I mean,
still
you
think
got
Trey Young would be a bit
Well,
access to.
look what happened to D'Angelo Russell. When he's in Minnesota, he's racking up numbers. He goes and joins LeBron again, and then like he disappears.
yeah. I
Uh,
mean, you can't you got ball dominant guys, and to me, Trey Young is a ball dominant guy. He's got to have the ball.
yeah,
And
he-
that's what makes him a threat when he's coming up the floor, and he's kind of like in a Curry type of deal where when he's bringing the ball up, he's got so much range. That's what makes him a threat. That's what spreads the floor, because if he's bringing the ball up, he might just stop at the logo and just pull up. So that makes you have to play up on defense, and that kind of spreads the floor more. If he plays in another offense where somebody else is ball dominant, it's gonna make him play off the ball, and it's gonna make him in a weird spot, or it's gonna put LeBron in a weird spot. Somebody's gonna be playing in a spot where they're not accustomed to.
yeah, and
Wow.
Trey's not much of a spot up shooter. He needs to be in some kind of a motion offense, but Trey's just a younger version of Dame Lillard without the well, he has some of the bravado, but he's got the shooting range of Steph Curry, but he has some of the quickness, but I think Steph Curry's a little basketball IQ's a little higher. So they've been trying to run that pick and roll with Capella for years down in Atlanta, and they got the one Eastern Conference Finals not getting done. But he's Damian Lillard, Damon Stoudemire, that
Mm,
light it up and then try to hide him on defense. But yeah,
I
yeah.
gotta go back and say one thing though. I had to think about this, and I looked at Miami Heat's roster. Mike, you're
Mhm.
right. Miami Heat might be a great contender if they're healthy, because I had to think about it. I really like Bam, and I really grew an appreciation for Bam watching him play in the Olympics.
Yep.
Right, I grew a great appreciation. I knew he was a great player. I knew he had all these different tools, but being able to just hone in and watch him play and watch him even off the ball, the things that he's able to do on both sides of the ball, he's tough, man. And I think that in that offense, I think Spoelstra and them are kind of holding him back because he can do so much that I haven't seen him do in an NBA game that he was doing over there. Like, kind of taking people off the dribble, that type of stuff, some ISOs. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
man, why don't they do this more in Miami? Because I'm like, he clearly has it and it's natural to him. So I'm like, Miami, if they're healthy, they could be dangerous for sure.
Yeah, that's my thoughts exactly. Because I was like, man, they got the culture there for sure, but
Mhm.
they still have pieces though. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
If
they
Jimmy
do.
Butler stays healthy for the whole season, I mean, I'd say if he stay healthy through the playoffs, I mean, if they make the playoffs, he stays healthy, they can actually get to the third round for sure.
Yeah, I agree.
Anyway, guys, throwing it back to you, man, Boogie Bob. There's been a lot of great people playing for the Lakers back in the day, present time now. And there's been some very memorable moments watching these guys play. My first introduction to the NBA was the Mavericks. I think it was 85, I believe, that they faced off against the Lakers in the Western Conference Finals.
87. Well,
87.
they played 85, but it was the Western Conference Finals was 87.
7. Thank you. That's when my introduction to the Lakers came, and I hated them ever since then because they beat the Mavs. And I've never watched basketball to that point. So to think about some memorable players for the Lakers who has a great legacy when it comes to the Lakers basketball organization, who do you have as far as memorable to you? And the legacy is one of those players that lives on forever.
Well, Magic Johnson lore, uh, my first year of college was 78. 79, it was the Irvin Magic Johnson and Larry Bird show in the NCAA
Mm.
final. And Magic was going like, whoop, the Greg Pelser. He had a great Lakers team. Uh, and I've said this before. To me, LeBron is more Magic Johnson than Kobe Bryant or Michael Jordan. His game's more like Magic's game
Mm.
than Jordan's game. Magic's career stats. Remember, it was cut short because he was tested positive for AIDS, which now has a treatment.
So let me ask you this question, and I can't remember how old was Magic at the time when he was diagnosed.
Uh, Early 30s.
Okay, so he still has some years to go.
He took 1, 2, 3, 4. He took 4 years off. He came back and played a fifth year as a power forward after not playing for 4 years.
Wow.
So his career stats: 19 points a game, 7 rebounds a game, and 11 assists a game.
Sheesh.
We talk about Stockton, the career assist leader. Had Magic played all those years, as many years as Stockton, he might be the number one. LeBron. Think about LeBron's stats. He's career points leader. Eventually, he's going to be uh, top top three, maybe the top person in assists. He's top 10 in rebounds. As far as triple double goes, that gets talked a lot. But when you talk about being the number 1, 2, or 3 in 3 different statistical categories lifetime, you're talking about a pretty terrific player.
Mm.
So 12 out of 14 seasons, Magic Johnson was in the MVP race and won 3 of them. He won his last MVP in 1989-90 season,
Wow.
the year before. And so he got tested for AIDS because of blood tests for marriage license in 91. He came back in 95-96, played 30 minutes a game, averaged he averaged double digits in points, 6 rebounds a game, and still as a power forward, he was still averaging. Uh, so it's 14 points a game and 7 assists a game and 7 rebounds.
God, that
Five
sounds like
years, 5 years
Draymond Green
after he
almost.
played. So I got to see him. They got beat by the Rockets in the playoffs that year. Where Magic could put on some weight, but he moved to power forward. And uh, for the older folks watching, you'll remember Kareem got hurt in Game 6, and Magic decided to play center and scored like 42 points or something like that against the Sixers or the Celtics. But he scored 40 plus points in the Game 6 clinching championship, and he was Rookie of the Year, and I think he was MVP of the finals that year. So he had a shorter career than what you would hope. But people see Magic now, and his laugh and his smile was just contagious. He was always smiling,
Mhm.
And my favorite Magic story was the first time they had a practice. James Worthy said, he played with Michael Jordan and Nordry and a bunch of other great players in North Carolina. He said in the first practice with Magic, he made a mistake and turned his head, and Magic zapped him right in the head with a basketball.
I remember
He
that.
said he learned real quick, never turn your head when Magic's playing because the pass will be coming your way. And we see Luka make a lot of passes, but Magic, if the defender, not just his defender, but any of the other four players, if the defender turned their head or back toward Magic, the ball was going. He was an incredible passer, and he was the first really true tall, big point guard. Magic is 6'9" point
I
guard.
thought he was 6'10".
Well, they have him listed as 6'9", but people have said he's taller.
Yeah,
like
but,
KD.
You didn't. I mean, that Lakers team was full of players, and he was he wasn't what we call ball dominant now, but the ball was in the hands a lot, and he had so many options in offense that he didn't have to score a lot, but yet he still averaged 19 points a game and 11 assists a game. Those kind of numbers for any point guard, even the small fast ones back then, that was just not heard of. So to me, he not only, I mean, we can debate all day long, him and Larry Bird changed the league, but if he had been the player and Bird hadn't been the player that they were and got better, then I don't think they would have got near as much credit of changing the NBA. If you wanted to watch the finals, you probably saw it live by then, but in the early 80s, you had to watch a tape delay, 1 or 2 in the morning, or get it on VHS tape from somebody and watch it later. It wasn't on primetime TV until much later. So the Magic he still has an influence on the game. He still has an influence on owners, GMs, managers, and a lot of the things that Magic doesn't get credit for is he put a lot of money in Compton, LA, and South LA. A lot of the movie theaters and barbershops. He invested in the city, not just give money to the poor, but he helped them have businesses that help them succeed. And he still today helps the young players try to manage their money so that when their playing career is over, even today, you ask a teenager, say, hey, you know who Magic Johnson is? They're like, yeah, because they still see him on TV. They still see him on late night TV show hosts. So you laughing and making and smiling and all that. And he hadn't played since '95. That to me, that's a pretty solid legacy. When I don't know if they have a statue. Kobe just got his second statue made, but
crazy.
Magic that was my era growing up with it. And even if you hated the Lakers, you loved watching Magic play. That tells you something. When you hate the team, but you love watching the player play.
Makes a lot of sense. Ken, I mean, your thoughts on the Lakers. Who had the most memorable player and legacy that you can think of? And Bob, man, you just kind of described a phenomenal player. I don't know if Ken can match that or not, but hey, we can give it a
I
shot.
mean, like he always says, great minds think alike. I mean, outside of Kobe, it's definitely Magic. I
Yeah,
mean, when you think about the Lakers, you think about the Showtime Lakers,
yeah.
and without Magic Johnson, there's no Showtime. I mean, just watching his highlights still today, it gives you chills to see some of the passes he was able to make. And I know a lot of people compare LeBron to Magic, and I see the comparisons because they're big, they can both pass, but I think Magic Johnson was still a next level passer above LeBron. LeBron has great vision, but Magic just had something special, right? that you just can't. That's not taught. That's just God-given ability. He's a big guard. He was able to see over the offense, see over the defense, see where everybody was, and he knew the offense. So it's like he knew where people were supposed to be, and it's like he passed the ball where you're going.
Mm,
So I mean, not many guys are able to do that. And again, a lot of people compare LeBron to Magic, and the point, and because they distribute the ball, but and this has been said throughout LeBron's whole career, he's a pass first guy. I
hmm
hate that narrative that he's a pass first guy.
mm,
He is a willing passer. He is a player that is willing to pass, and he can pass. I don't like the fact that people put him in the category as of pass first. You know what I'm saying? He's a great basketball player. Magic Johnson was a pass first guy. He's
mm.
looking to pass the ball right off the rip. When he gets the ball and he's coming up the court, he's not thinking about scoring. He's looking to see who's open. And scoring is his last option because he could have easily averaged 25 plus, even with the guys that he had, because of his ability to push the ball and get up the floor. Like, it's a lot of times where you look at some of those highlights, you're like, man, he could have scored that, but he dished it off to like James Worthy or somebody like that, or Kareem, for them to, dunk it. He was like, you were right there. You could have scored that. But he's a pass first guy. So it's a difference when you see LeBron go to the hole. He's not looking to pass that. Once he get past that first level of the defense, he's looking to dunk that ball, which he should. You know what I'm saying? Because he's a above the rim guy. So when you look at these guys, it's easy to compare because you see flashes of different people. But Magic was definitely a once in a generation type of guy, right? You're not going to see too many guys that are going to be able to do the things that he did. And quiet as kept, a lot of people don't think about his defense, man. His defense wasn't
Mhm.
shabby either. I mean, a lot of people don't key in on it, don't talk about it much. But again, when you look at the tape don't lie. I mean, he was solid on defense as well. So, and like Boogie Bob said, for him to go and play at the center position at the highest game, you know what I'm saying? At the top game in the season, you know what I'm saying? You're in the finals and you go and you play a position I mean, you starting at the one and then you go from the one to the five and you dominate. You don't just play, you dominate a very good team. So I mean, I don't see.
The Magic had the sky hook too.
Yeah, I don't see how anybody can say anybody outside of Kobe and then Magic. Those are the top two Lakers to me ever.
You know what? Those I'm so glad you mentioned willing passer because you kind of opened my eyes about the difference between a passing person who passed first and a willing passer. And that makes so much sense, man. I never thought about it. I mean, I've heard it before, like when commentators say he's a willing passer, but when you kind of broke the differences, like he passed first, and then there's a willing passer, and
And see,
you just
cause see,
epiphany.
to me, Luca is a willing passer. He's not a pass first guy. Luca
Mm,
looking to get a bucket. If he can't get the bucket, he's going to find somebody in a position where they can get a bucket. Similar to LeBron. It's the same thing. The only thing different between Luka and LeBron is Luka doesn't have the ability to penetrate and finish. He's not a finisher like that, right? I mean, he got a little hop. He got a little hop, but he's not a threat to to put somebody on a poster. So the threats are a little bit different, and Luka's a lot better shooter to me than LeBron. So the two
Yeah.
have, what I'm saying, they're different superpowers, as I always call them. So, but like I said, at the end of the day, Magic just his name is fitting. Let's just say that it's fitting, man. And I like I said again, I think outside of Kobe, there's nobody else who has a better Laker legacy than Magic.
Why would you put Shaq in there? I mean, I guess because he came from Orlando, he's not a true Laker because he wasn't drafted by them.
And
Even
Kareem,
Kobe wasn't drafted
Kareem,
either.
and Will.
I think to me, personally, I put Shaq ahead of Kareem and Wilt in a Laker uniform. To me.
I can agree with that.
So
So
one thing I'll add to your note on the passing, and they're it's not so much that Luka's a willing passer. It's that his passes are right on the money. It's right in what they call the pocket. The player doesn't have to move to get the ball. You don't see him take a step. You barely even see him move their hands. It's like they're like a receiver. They're like, okay, I'm ready. He makes he threw a pass last year when he's baseline, and they had to show it, and it went through two players to the top of the key, three players in a line. And it's like, how could you even see that pass, let alone thread the needle? He makes some ridiculous. I was watching the highlights where he threw a bounce pass that went between the defender's legs.
I seen
So
that.
uh, what really highlighted to me people that are good passers was when uh, when the Mavs were struggling and after Jet left and they had several different point guards and Dirk would go down to his post up spot, but when he'd get his position, he had to go to the ball, he had to go catch the ball, or he had to take a step to get the ball and then reestablish position. And most people are like, well, the point guard got him the ball. It's like, yeah, but he was out of position by the time he got the ball. When Kidd was here and Nash was here and all that, when Dirk got the ball, he didn't have to move to go get it. And I don't think people appreciated the hands that Dirk had to be able to receive the ball. So it's like there's a lot of guys that can pass the ball, but to put it on target and on pace where you don't have to move, that's a completely different level passer.
yeah.
And the reason I bring this up is Magic, LeBron, Luka, all three of them are on that level of being great passers, not just good passers.
You missed two people, Steve Nash, John Stockton.
Yeah, I mean Nash dribbled, and made the pass, but I'm talking about making passes that they used to have a skills competition where they had to throw the ball and hit into
Yeah,
the net. And John Wall had great field of vision, which meant he could off to the side, and he was pretty good at. So yeah, those guys had a lot of assists, and Stockton knew how to get it to Malone. But I'm talking about when the space between two players is about the width of my head, and the ball goes in between it and goes right to the player where they don't even have to move it.
mm.
I think Jason Kidd falls in that category too. If you go back and
This
look
would
at a
fall
lot of
in this category
yeah,
definitely.
because
And
he not only did it on the ground. Jason Kidd is one of the first point guards who we saw, and he had the team to play with when he was with the Nets, where it was alley oops everywhere.
Kenyon
yeah,
Martin.
Yeah, him and Richard Jefferson. It was dunks galore, alley oops galore. So
and
I think
and
Jason Kidd
Kid
falls in that category.
Kid did what you were talking about. He threw it to where the player was supposed to be, where he saw the opening in the play, not where the player was at, but where the player needed to be. And you might be able to put Chris Paul in that category. He's a pretty excellent passer. But there's being a willing passer, but you can't pass worth a darn. Who cares? You know, it only takes a blink of an eye for the defense recovery in the NBA. So if the pass is off, you've lost your advantage. So
Going down the other side of the court. So I mean, like we could talk about winning passes, man. I'm Ken. Thank you for that dime, man. That just opened my eyes a way to look at it differently. And speaking about looking at things differently, man, there's some players back in the day that had some awesome footwork when it comes to just being able to get past you. I mean, you don't even got to be on the dribble, even in the low post game. There's been some phenomenal players with great footwork. And Bob, we're going to kind of start with you with this one. What player, if you could think about, as far as you can think back, when is my memory is not that far back as far as the NBA goes. I didn't watch a lot of games until the Lakers Mavericks '87. What player do you have as listed as has the best footwork when it comes to just being able to get past a defender and scoring a bucket, whether it be from the top of the key or low post?
well, so I have 3 players current and 3 players that came immediately to mind that are old school. I'll start with the current players. Luca has excellent footwork. He gets open because he doesn't ever lift that pivot foot. He may make whoop, 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 and then shoot a fadeaway. That he's to me, he's got great footwork.
So is he your number one on your list
He's
or
my
just
number one.
okay? Okay, all right. Let me hear the rest of the list.
Uh, Very similar, and he played with him and copied a lot of his game. Is Jalen Brunson's footwork is pretty good, pretty darn good, even as a Nova. Now as a Nova Nick, like you see him driving, and he finishes probably more. He shoots the 3 ball, but Brunson's dad played in the NBA, and he was a coach. So I like Brunson's footwork.
Mm, okay.
And then most most people don't think of this third guy as footwork just because of the way they run their offensive sets. But Jokic has really good footwork for a big guy. So that's current players. Those were the ones that came to mind.
Okay.
Uh, Old school, nothing like the Dream Shake. Elijah Wan, he whoop, get you, you know. I forgot to mention Steph Curry has good handles, but his handles are set up by his footwork because he gets people as Mark Jackson get them on roller skates. But old school, I have Sabonis, Mr. Fundamental, Duncan, the
Oh yeah,
late great, the late great Bill Walton, and then of course because I love by Sam Majama, Elijah Wan.
Elijah one. I'm about to say. I'm about to say that list misses somebody. Anybody else you can think of, or that's your list?
Well, I don't know. I didn't really watch Chris Webber's footwork to know, but Chris Webber was a beast.
Well, you already know that's my all time favorite NBA player of all
Yeah,
time. So
I
I'm
would have
pretty.
loved to seen Weber and Barkley in their primes go against each other.
Didn't he dunk on Barkley in a playoff game
Yeah, Barkley was getting a little older by then, but I'm talking about them
in their
relative being
prime?
relative same age. I'd have loved to seen that matchup.
Man, all right, Ken, we're gonna throw it to you. Here's the assist.
All right, yeah. Boogie Bob left a little bit of meat on the bone, but he for my old school, I got one old school, one new school. For my old school, he got the dream, and he said the dream. And I mean, when you think footwork, you think the dream. When you got guys in today's game who want to learn footwork or who want to get better with their footwork, where do they go? Kobe,
Mm,
LeBron, Dwight Howard, JaVale McGee. You've seen tons of footage of these guys going to the dream to learn footwork. So
mhm.
he's my old school player that I have listed for my new school. This might shock some people, but I got Embiid. I got Embiid for having great footwork because if you look at him as a big, both in the post and off the dribble because for him to be 7'1", they got him listed at 7'1", 7'2". For him to be able to handle the ball the way he does, outside, off the dribble, and in the post, his reverse pivot game. I mean, it's top tier. It's top tier for a guy like I said, a guy that big to be able to move like that. Like he's not like some of these other guys, like a Kevin Durant or like a Chet, where they're long guys, they're 7-footers, but they're 190 pounds. You're talking about a guy that's almost 300 pounds moving like this. The only other person we've seen at that size that could move like that is Shaq. But Shaq just didn't have the I think the footwork nor the handles that Joel Embiid has. So, for me, the new school best footwork is Joel Embiid.
And
Wow.
when he was at Kansas and Kansas recruited him, they called him the next Elijah, and they called him the next Dream Shake.
Mm.
That was before he ever got drafted, and before anybody knew about him as a Sixer. Like now there's a lot of publicity on him. But when his freshman year at Kansas, Bill Self, who's a pretty good coach, he said that's the next coming of Elijah right there.
I mean, I'm surprised neither one of you guys mentioned Jordan. I'm ashamed of you guys.
Well, I mean, that's to me when you make any of these lists, to say Mike is kind of cliche. Like everybody knows Mike's game is top tier. I mean, I think we've heard and seen so many interviews where I think Kenny Smith said it best. People know Mike was a great player, arguably the greatest, but people don't look at the fine details of Mike's game. He says like when
Mhm.
he's playing defense, his hand is the right way, his feet are the right way. That's why he was able to get so many steals, and that's why he was so good on defense. When he makes plays on offense, when you look at the film, there's not a lot of dribbling around. There's not a lot of it's just 1-2 pull up. You know what I'm saying? He was very efficient. So pivot game, fade away, like he had everything. So I mean, yeah, when we make these lists, I don't go Jordan because I mean that's as they say, that's a low hanging fruit. Like you can pick that you can pick that and nobody's gonna argue with you. So I try to
It's a given. It's a given. He was
yeah.
great with everything.
So
I mean, he didn't have a weak area.
yeah, and that's
So,
and that's what I try to explain to younger guys when they have these. I don't argue back and forth about who's the greatest and stuff like that. But I know I have a lot of younger guys who try to pick apart Jordan's game, and I'm like, where was the weak? They say, well, he didn't go left. I'm like, go look at the tape. Stop listening to these content creators that are trying to popularize themselves by
yeah,
splicing film together, and look at him go left. Look at him shoot free throws with his left hand. Look at him
facts.
do every when you got a guy with hands the size of a baseball mitt, you think he can't go left? All he has to do is palm it and go because he can palm the ball. But I
Wow,
mean, it's a lot of narratives out there. But like I said, at the end of the day, man, Jordan is a one-on-one, and there was nobody like him before, and nobody like him coming behind him. We got guys that are great in the game, but to me, when you got certain guys, like I said, him, Magic, even LeBron, like these guys are generational talents, and I mean, I don't even like to compare them. They're all great.
Yeah,
now this is just
and
a cat.
when I developed my list as far as footwork is because uh, that's what I survived on when I played pickup ball, and I studied players that had good footwork and where they had, Aguirre and Dantley. Like, why was their turnaround fadeaway so good? And so if you're not blessed with talent, or you're not super athletic, or you're not, like DJJ, Flyer or Dennis Smith Jr., uh, your footwork can make up for a lot of non-athleticism. Because if I always said when I did pickup basketball, I'll take speed over height anytime. And they're like, why? I said, because if you can't get your feet there, it don't matter how tall you are. And so footwork to me is not so much, are they fancy and all that? It's for the. I mean, no one's going to say uh, Luca is the most athletic guy. I mean, he's asked him why he didn't dunk. He's like, I don't dunk. He's 6'7", 6'8", but their footwork is what sets up a lot of their shots. And their footwork is what gets the defender off balance. Their footwork is what gets them the open shot. There was a stat on ESPN about the comparison of Harden and Luka and some of the other players with step backs. And the average NBA player, the distance that they step back is 4.5 to 5 feet. James Harden was over 6 feet. He's one of the first to be that high. He was like 6 foot. Luka's step back is 8 feet.
Damn.
8 feet. So you can be Boban Marjanovic, 7'5", 7'6". You can jump, you can't get to the shot. And that is all set up. Of course, he's got to be able to dribble, but it's all set up with his footwork. You don't know if he's going left, right, forwards, north, south, backwards, east, west. He keeps you. And they talk about him not having the speed, but they talk about his deceleration. Well, you can't decelerate if you're not moving. So he has to have a certain, you don't see people running him down when he's in open court. So he's not exactly slow, but his footwork sets up a lot of his game. And that's why I mentioned him, Brunson and Jokic. And I left Embiid on the table because, he is a modern day Elijah Wan, like Ken said. He's the reason I watch the Sixers now.
So just to add a little bit cherry on the top for players I thought had great footwork, Dirk Nowitzki was one that had really good footwork, man. When it comes to when he got to the low post, he used his footwork. And I think he kind of got a lot of his game as far as the low post from Elijah Wan. And lastly, as far as the cherry on the top, I would say Allen Iverson. That dude had great footwork when it comes to getting by people, hesitations, all that stuff made his game to where he was MVP when he won the MVP. And I think his footwork was phenomenal as well. But keeping with the Mavericks, man, I'm kind of disappointed that we got this far, Western Conference Finals, and did not finish the job when we got to the finals. And we're gonna start with you. Back to you, Boogie Bob. What happened to the Mavs in the NBA Finals for 2024, man? I'm still mourning, but kind of be light on me. Just take it easy on me.
I actually only have really one comment. And you see what hat I'm wearing today,
2011.
2011. So and we've had this discussion on our episode. What's the hardest to win? A baseball World Series, a football Super Bowl, or hockey Stanley Cup, or basketball? And it's easy to get in on basketball. I think it's one of the hardest to win, and it's because very few lower seeds ever make the finals, and they hardly ever lower seed without home court advantage wins it.
Mm.
It's a 2-month. The year they won it in 2011, it was 62 days. If you were on that roller coaster, you were way up here, or you were way down here if they lost. And it was just up, down, up, down. It's a 2-month long. You got to be on your best game. So that 2-month journey, teams that may get hot but go cold, they have a tough time finishing the race. And I think this is my one comment is their outside shooting went cold.
Mm.
And I'm not just going to point at any one player because it was basically team wide. But when they're out, and some of that I got to hand it to, you got Derek White and Drew Holiday. If they did get penetrated, you saw Derek White coming in blocking shots. It's like they did not allow many uncontested shots. So, you got to give some of that to the Celtics defense. But the years Jason Terry and Dirk played together, when Jason Terry went in the playoffs and he was cold, they lost in the first round. The year they won it, Jason Terry was hot for 2 months. So to me, what happened is their outside shooting went cold, and it's just that basic.
Mm. So you didn't think anything about what Kyrie didn't bring for that series? He had only one really good game.
You're playing against players that he practiced against. Kyrie made one quote when they played Clippers, and he told Kidd, he said, I want to guard James Harden. And it's not exactly the first choice any coach would make. And he
Mm.
told Kidd, he said, I practiced against him for a year and a half. I know all his moves.
So he
So,
couldn't bring that same knowledge to playing against Boston Celtics?
well, I think Boston brought that knowledge to guard Kyrie.
But not to shoulder all the blame on Kyrie, what could the Mavs have done to win that series? I think you
Control,
kind of alluded to it in the beginning.
well, the team, I look for the team that loses their poise. And I mean, that's easy that a lot of announcers say that now, but I've been saying it before it became a term. When you see there's a lot riding, we get so emotional that you lose the poise. And if it's one player, if that one player is the someone the team looks up to, then the team kind of sags with it. And you know this is the coach. Like we were in the championship game and it was tied. We got a bum call, and my fellow coach, he wanted to chew out the player. Like, hey, we ain't lost the game yet, guys. Keep your heads up. And they, you
Mm,
know, they all had their heads ducked like we'd lost the game.
mm,
Like we ain't lost it yet. And so my point being was, don't let the emotions of the game ruin your poise. Keep your head in the game. And you know, when they didn't win game 3, they won game 4 by blowout, but that's a gentleman's sweep. They
hmm.
they the pivotal game to me was game 2.
Yeah.
They just did not finish and they didn't hold it down the stretch.
Yeah, because I remember we did a poll and we was asking our viewers, and we had a lot of people chime in on it. Who do you have winning game one, game two, game three, game four? And the overwhelming response was Dallas. Dallas was picked to really win in regards to the polling, but I guess maybe those are just math homers that pretty much voted. But I don't know how they did not finish this off and bring it back like they did in 2011.
Well, the quote Arnold, will be back.
All right, Ken, let me get your take on that, man. What happened to Dallas, man, in the finals for 2024?
I think they just ran into a team that had better chemistry. I think again, when you have continuity on your roster, when you get in the trenches and you get into these more, more demanding games, having guys that know each other's tendencies, know each other, and know each other's, abilities. Or as I always say, superpowers. Like how to play. And the Mavericks had a lot of great pieces, but I think with them having bringing the guys in that they brought in halfway through the season,
Hmm.
it was still some learning. As far as defensively is the biggest thing that I saw, that there was some lapses defensively that we had, and that just came from not knowing each other's habits. If certain guys play certain types of defense, and okay, well, he usually tries to cheat this guy over this way, so I know saying, to come to play up a little bit more and those type of things. I think that's really what it boiled down to, because if you look at some of those games, Dallas made some great runs, and you know, it seems like every time they made a run, Boston had a counter. They
Hmm.
had a counter for everything, and quiet as kept, Al Horford was the X factor in that, because he did so much and he shot so well. I think he shot a lot better than a lot of people thought he was going to shoot in that series. And he had some big shots that they kind of put things out of range a couple of those games. So I think this year, with having a roster that they have, getting guys in, having guys there for the off season, and kind of working through things for a whole season and developing that chemistry, Dallas will definitely have another shot at it. But at the same time, Boston didn't lose much. So, with them, kind of returning pretty much the same roster, I mean, Boston has a great shot at it too. But I just think Dallas wasn't ready, to me, defensively, to say it. You know what I'm saying? Like offensively, they had it. And the only other thing I'll say, to me, Kyrie needs more touches.
Mm.
And it's not just about the touches, it's how he gets the touches that matter. Just like we talked about earlier, you got guys that pass the ball and the ball gets in his hands, but you can't give the ball to Kyrie with 5 seconds to go on the shot clock and say, okay, go ISO and create. Like he's only going to be able to do that so much, you know what I'm saying? And I love Luca, but sometimes Luca pounds the ball too much and he eats up, 10, 12 seconds, 15 seconds of the shot clock just dribbling. And I'm like, dude, like
Get off
if
the
you look,
ball.
yes, yes, like move the ball around. I mean, sometimes you can do that, but for Kyrie to be effective, like again, like we talked about earlier, there are certain guys who need to be on the ball. And I think with him being used to being on the ball in his previous settings and him having to play off the ball at this point in his career, it's a little bit unsettling, right? Because if you remember when he was with Cleveland, and he was with Bron, a lot of those games he took over in the fourth quarter.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was a lot of those games where he was the ball dominant guy and LeBron kind of played off the ball a little bit more. So they're gonna have to figure this out. Jason Kidd, Luca, and, and Kyrie are gonna have to figure out how they can, have a balance of, touches so that in the fourth quarter, you know, okay, these guys either one, and that's I think that gives the Mavericks an advantage of having two guys that can be your go-to guys at the end of the game.
But you got 3 now with Klay Thompson. And if you look back at that
Four.
series,
You're forgetting about Spencer Dinwiddie.
well, that's
I
I mean, as far as
I don't
starters go, and I think
I
Klay
don't
is going to start.
I don't think Clay is a go-to guy. I think he's at this point in his career, especially, he's a shooter. He's a spot up guy. He's not gonna be the guy that you say, go get a bucket. He's not
Gotcha.
that guy, right?
Yeah, he led the league their last 16, 17, that run of championship appearances. He had the least amount of dribbles out of any NBA player for the number of shots
Oh,
taken.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah,
I
So
get
yeah,
it
he's
now.
an off the ball. But I want to point on one thing. Ken, you're talking about with the defense that they had a lot of missed assignments. So they were expecting one player to be there, and it wasn't so much that they could play defense or didn't want to. It's just the communication, missed assignments.
Mhm.
Derek Lively made up a lot of it. So the one thing, remember, they made the Western Conference Finals 2 years earlier. There were only 4 players on this team from that team just 2 years earlier.
Mhm.
So, you threw a lot of parts together, and for it to work that well in that short a time period, that's kind of uncommon. And so now you got a second year with PJ Washington. It's like you actually have uh, 4 of your starting 5. This will be the first time in Luka's career where he didn't have a whole new starting lineup. And when Dwight Powell's your fourth center instead of your starting center, then you've made major improvement. Uh, but yeah, you're right. They missed assignments, and Boston was a well-oiled machine. If you made a mistake, they punished you for it.
Yep.
Uh, you know, it's kind of how we learn when you have an older or younger brother. You get beat once or twice, you learn how to figure out how not to get beat up. And so the majority of the glue that held that team together is coming back. So Golden State had uh, what 4, 5, 6 years. They used to talk about this even when Magic, Larry Bird days. Teams that had been together for a long time, they knew where it was supposed to be, and they knew where they were supposed to be, on offense and defense. So Ken's right. That like part of that was forced, but there's just a lot of missed assignments and newness. Uh, and I think as you see the season go along, you're going to see a lot less of those mistakes happen. Uh,
Well, I was going to say, looking back at the series itself, when they went to 5 games, there was only 3 blowouts out of that. That was crazy because when I'm saying blowouts, anything 15 points or over, and the 2
yeah,
close games were Game 2 and Game 3, which were one in Dallas, and the other one was in Boston, which was Game 2 was in Boston. And Dallas had an opportunity to really win both of those games. If they could have won those 2 games, this would have been a whole totally different series because the game 4 they beat them by freaking for almost 40 points. So if they would have just did that, that would have been Dallas winning the finals in that in 2024. But
It tells you the talent was at least on par. And one thing I want to talk that Ken talked about, if you go back and watch Game 6 against Minnesota, they got him to the finals. The first shot was within at the 19, 20, or 21 second mark in the shot clock. So Luka was not pounding it for 15 to 18 seconds and then trying to make a play. That they were running their offense. That's why Rudy Gobert and Cat were wasn't much they could do on defense because Mavs were already into their offense with 2-3 seconds into the shot clock, and the ball was hopping and moving, and they were shooting early in the shot clock. They didn't do that against Boston, and I credit Derek White and Drew Holiday for part of that. But I think Luka and Kyrie were by that time they were getting out of gas. They they done spent most of their what they had to get there, and there just wasn't a lot of reserve in the tank. And Boston didn't have to fight as hard to get to the finals. They had a lot more reserve in the tank than the Mavericks did.
And I was looking at that earlier, well, yesterday. Boston only lost 3 games to get to the finals as far as the playoffs go. Ken, in regards to what Dallas could have done, and as far as the NBA Finals of 2025, what you think, in your opinion, would have been a difference maker? Would it be more the defensive end, or I know you said continuity with the teams playing together, but it's got to be something else that they could have done. That I mean, rest
Well,
for
I don't think
sure.
so. I don't
Yeah.
think so. I think just like Boogie Bob said, when you got guys, we all played basketball before, and if you play with a group of guys on a consistent basis, you know their tendencies.
Hmm.
So when you're out on the floor, it's just certain things I tell people all the time, the coach can coach you, but when the ball goes up and the lights come on, you're gonna conform to what you're used to doing. Whatever your habits are, that's what you're gonna go back to. You're gonna go back to your factory settings. So so albeit Jason Kidd's a great coach, great coaching staff. They had great talent, so the talent is there, but it's just the fact of knowing each other's tendencies, especially defensively, because there was too many missed defensive assignments that cost them. Like you said, they showed that they could compete. They showed that they should have won some more games than just one game. But again, a collection of talent versus a well-oiled machine. The well-oiled machine is going to win every time.
Facts.
So,
Facts.
I think it's just time. Like I said, Boston, that roster for the most part has been together for 2 or 3 seasons already. So, what I'm saying, now that talent and that chemistry came together. So I think the Dallas Mavericks have the same opportunity if they can keep this roster together for the next year or two. If not this year, in the next couple of years, they'll be back in the finals and they should have an opportunity to win it.
Last question for you, Ken. What does Dallas need to change? Because I know they did a lot of changes in the offseason. What do they think they need to change as far as position wise to get them to win that championship for 2025?
Absolutely nothing. They have the roster now and the pieces to do what they need to do
So you think
offensively and
the
defensively.
Derek White Jr., Derek Jones Jr. leaving, what does that kind of test for the team itself?
Let me look at their roster again because I
I think
forgot.
Najee Marshall that they got is a better player than Derrick Jones Jr.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. I think the guys that they picked up in free agency, that they signed
And
will
Quentin Grimes is going to be an upgrade over Josh
Yeah.
Green.
well, yeah. Well, I think those guys are filling those spots. Like I said, Derek Jones, he contributed, but again, I think with the players that they do have, I think they have enough talent at all the positions and especially defensively to be able to compete with anybody because they got the offense covered. So, and I think with Lively coming back, he's gonna, now he's got some experience. And you still got Gafford.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't think anybody else in the league has, what I'm saying, a front court like we have and
Yep.
the ability to interchange those guys. Plus, PJ Washington, what I'm saying, can guard multiple positions. So, I mean, I think on both ends, we're covered with what we got. And, I mean, if Clay can come in and at least be a glimpse of old Clay, I mean, that's a, we actually got better I mean, if you could say that, because a lot of people would argue, back and forth. But I've been saying I think with the roster moves we got with Clay and of course with the free agents, I think we got better.
Gotcha. Gotcha. I'm really thrilled to see what they're going to do for this year, 2025. But in my opinion, I still think they need to soar up defensively for sure. They did better, but I don't know, man. I just got to see them working together. Like we said earlier, continuity is going to be the
Hmm.
key to them getting back and get through the West, because this is the West. The West is like it's like you fighting against army ants when it comes to the West, because there's no team that's really that bad in the West. You know what I mean? From six to one, all those teams can pretty much win the championship, as we've seen last year. So it's just the fact that the Mavs continue to push forward, and I'm a Mavs homer anyway. If they can push forward and get past the Oklahomas, probably freaking Utah's not going to be too bad because they getting better. But it's so many teams that's in the West, and Golden State's not going to go away, and the Lakers not going to go away. So I don't know, man, but it's going to be
And
tough.
Ken, so I came up with a term last year after trades for Gafford, and you feel free to pass it along. Me, Coach Mike and I, maybe we'll get a T-shirt. So I called them the Smash Brothers.
Talking
Gafford
about
and Lively.
Lively and Gafford Smash
Instead of
Okay.
Brothers.
Lob City, I called them the Smash Brothers. So when they added Clay, we got the Smash Brothers with a little bit of splash.
Yeah. Yep. Like I said, I agree.
Nah,
I
facts,
agree.
man.
We got to trademark that, Big Mike. Smash Brothers.
I don't know. Y'all think y'all might have some problems with Nintendo on that, but
Yeah. Not only Nintendo, but there's some things out there you might, if you Google Smash Brothers, you're gonna see more than that. And I'm just being real. But guys, hey man, Ken, blessing us tonight with your presence, man. It's been a minute. We're gonna get you on more often. I love your commentary, man. You always bring energy to the show. Your knowledge is amazing. We appreciate you, Bob, as always, man. You are definitely one of the best co-hosts I've had so far. So, Ken, as we close out, tell the people where they can find you at, your social media handles, and all that good stuff, my brother.
All right. Well, I appreciate you all having me on, and like I said, I look forward to it. And definitely hit me up, man, because I stay ready, man. I stay locked and loaded and ready to join
Locked
you
and
guys,
loaded.
man. Yep. So y'all can find me at Big Ken on Fire on all social media platforms. Y'all can also catch me every Tuesday live on YouTube and Facebook. Just follow the Fire Session. That's FIYAH session, and you type that in the search bar, will pop right up. Make sure you go to our YouTube, hit like and subscribe, and hit the bell button so you can get notified every time we go live and share content. And like I said again, I appreciate you guys for being supportive and bringing me on, man. Like I said, when you asked me to be on, it's the highlight of my week, man. It's the highlight of my week because I love coming on and talking sports with you guys, man, for sure.
And just a quick nugget, man. They be having some great shows on the Five Session. I ain't even lying. I be chiming in when I get a chance. I'm always in there giving my 2 cents, just trying to put in something to the content, man. So y'all do a great show, brother. And I
Appreciate it.
ain't even lying. I ain't not lying at all. Y'all have a great show. The format, if guys Fire Session on YouTube, if you go on Facebook, the same thing. Check them out, man. I'm telling y'all gonna love the topics and what they talk about. They come with some knowledge, man, and it's fire. And I love the name of it.
I
Bob,
appreciate
tell
that.
the people where they can find you at, man. Social media handles and just give me the details about you, my guy.
So, you know, YouTube, you can find me at Boogie Bob. No space or anything, just YouTube at Boogie Bob. Of course, you can always find me at Swish for real.
Swish for real. Again, guys, this has been an amazing show, man. We are closing out. You guys have a great rest of your night, man, and we'll do it again next time. Ken, thank you again. Guys, remember, Fire Session. And if you're looking for Boogie Bob on YouTube, it's Boogie with the G-E-Y at the end. G-E-Y, Boogie Bob. Guys, have a great one. Salute.
Subscribe for Swish
Yes,
for
sir,
real.
and subscribe. All right, man. Be good, man. Peace.
Peace.